to know.
From the Goldberg-Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg-Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trailblazers get a win last night. Way to bounce back, boys. Overtime victory, 137-131. Anthony Simons led the way for the Blazers with 33 points. But it was Jeremy Grant's step back. Bank in. Is the bank open? Sure is in Houston. Game-tying three-pointer with just 1.2 seconds on the clock. Blazers go on to win in overtime. Los Angeles Chargers have brought in Jim Harbaugh. Back to the NFL for Harbaugh. 5-year deal. He will be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Meanwhile, Michigan is reportedly narrowing its coaching search to offensive coordinator Sherrone Moore. And reports say that Dan Quinn is in Seattle today to interview with the Seattle Seahawks. Coming up in hour number 3, what a day to have Mike Yam from the NFL Network on the big show, formerly of the Pac-12 Network. But Mike Yam joins us in hour number 3, but ton of stuff in hour number 1 as we start right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Thursday. It is RCM. I am your host, Justin Myers. Super producer Brendan is safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late. However you are rolling on this particular Thursday. Oh, we got a lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. Blazers get a nice win last night. Had the Blazers figured some things out? Because we live in a world of spin, right? Live in a world of spin. You give me a couple of statistics, you give me a couple of storylines, I can find a narrative and I can spin it. That's my job. And if you go back and not completely botch one of the most ridiculous endings of a game, which was the other night against Oklahoma City. We had a 1-point lead, 14 seconds to go, and then a complete melee at the end of the game that featured 2 technical fouls, a coach ejection, a double dribble call. Was there a timeout? All that stuff. Filed a protest with the league. If that doesn't happen and the Blazers hold on to win that game, and then everything else happens, this is a team that potentially has won 4 of their last 5. But you accept reality on reality's terms because they needed a bank-in three-pointer last night to beat the Houston Rockets, but they got it, and then they hung on to win in overtime. And don't look now, from really a couple of weeks ago, when we were all wondering. We were all wondering, like, all right, overtime win in Brooklyn on January 2nd. But other than that, since the calendar has turned to 2024, the Blazers were on a stretch of absolute blowouts. Absolute blowouts that, of course, included that 60-point blowout loss to Oklahoma City just a couple of weeks ago. That was January 11th. They lost 7 of 8, I think by an average of around 22, 23 in that stretch. They got a win against Brooklyn. And we were wondering, which is a fair question to ask, has this team quit? Has this team quit on Chauncey Billups? Has this team quit on the organization? What is the motivation for this team? I believe I even said it's time to trade all the old guys and just play the young guys. And how the thinking was back then, I think that was a fair assessment. Well, that question has been answered. Haven't quit on him. Bounce back, beat Brooklyn, beat Indiana. Not a great showing against the Lakers, but had Oklahoma City. What a mess that was. Get a win against Houston, play against San Antonio. Brendan, that 20-win threshold is now looking more and more possible. Now, a lot of things can happen when the calendar turns to February and March in the old NBA, right? Especially with the trade deadline coming up. And we have seen this team shut it down early the last 2 seasons. Who knows what's going to be ultimately on the way. But when you look at where they were to where they are, kind of figuring some things out. This team is far from good. It's far from good. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, like, I love being Captain Positivity, all right? I love being Mr. Puppy Dogs and Rainbows. Captain Optimism is what they call me. No, they don't. I named it myself. But I want to be Mr. Positive, and we're not going to sit here and rain on a win last night. Fun to watch. Wins are fun. Not going to sit here and rain on it, but this team has still got a ways to go. But I think we can all sit here and admit when they are relatively healthy. They're still not at full strength, by the way. Still don't have Shaden Sharp. But the fact that they have got Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Simons, along with Scoot, Matisse Thybulle, like when they get healthy, this team ain't so bad. Now, they're not a playoff team. They're not a championship caliber team. This is still very much early stages of rebuilding. But, you know, when you look back at the disastrous start to the 2024 part of the season, we all want to make mountains out of those molehills. I talk about it all the time. We want something exotic. We want something sexy. We want something controversial. You know what's not exotic, sexy, or controversial? Injuries. It's just not. When you hear hooves, think horse. Don't think zebra. But zebras are like, I hear hooves all the time. Maybe this time it's a zebra. Yeah, it's not. It is usually the simplest answer. I believe we talked about this before. Pascal's wager, right? All things considered, the simplest answer is usually the correct one. All things. We want it to be some sort of like, does John C. Billups know what he's doing? Is there a revolt going on? Have the players quit? The front office, are we tanking it? No, this team was injured. They were injured, dealt with illness. Now, I don't blame them for taking the tact that they have, because the way that they have gone about injuries has been, let's say, extraordinarily cautious. Let's just say that. Now, that's probably not all that different than the rest of the NBA, but there has been an extraordinarily cautious approach to injuries. Knee tendonitis? Yeah, it's going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be a couple weeks. You got a sore adductor? Yep. Shut it down. Couple of weeks. We're not taking any precautions. We're not fighting through injuries, because that's not what we're about this year. But I think what we have seen over the last 5 games, except for that Laker game, wasn't their night. Happens. Brandon, when this team is healthy, they're not so bad. They have a chance to compete, and they have a chance to pull off a couple of upsets here or there. Now, got a lot of pieces. Here's what's going to be interesting, because looking at the schedule ahead, the way this team is playing now, like if healthy, right? You got San Antonio tomorrow on the road. Sunday night at Moda Center, Bulls come back. Then, oh boy, 76ers at Moda. Then there's a game on January 31st. Might have some eyeballs on it. You know? By the way, we had not talked about that at all. And maybe it's because I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for it yet. I was thinking about it we're less than a week away. We're less than a week away from when the Milwaukee Bucks come to Moda Center.
I can't wait to see what the fans do. I think
it's going to be a
bag.
37-minute standing ovation. We know it. Like, it's going to be a 37-minute standing ovation. It's Portland. Do you think there's going to be any boos?
Yes.
Because
I know there are people like me. So
yeah, but I don't know if there are. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe my X feed is different than your X feed.
Different algorithms, so it is.
It's very different algorithms. Why can't we ever agree on anything as a country? We all have our own personal algorithm. That's why. But not getting down that rabbit hole. I I don't think there's going to be any boos. I don't. I think if there are, I think they're going to be drowned out. I think it's going to be a massive, massive standing ovation. There's going to be a tribute video. There's going to be a tribute video. I think there's going to be tears. I think there's going to be fans with tears, thinking back to what it once was. I don't know if there's going to be any boos at all. I think you're in the minority there, dude. But
all right, we'll see.
But isn't it crazy? We're less than a week away from that. How nuts is that? Ticket price for that, $49 gets you in the building, according to the ESPN. But getting back to what I was saying. So the Blazers maybe beat San Antonio. You get Chicago at home. We'll see. Philadelphia, that's going to be tough. Then Dame comes back. Probably take a loss there. I'm going to give, all right, in a week. Now, obviously, we got a ton to talk about throughout the show because Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL now. Michigan, crazy. I got 2 crazy college football stats I want to talk about coming up next segment as well. We're going to talk about some coaching moves. Is this the perfect move for Justin Herbert? Is this the last opportunity for Justin Herbert? What am I talking about? Is that crazy kooky talk? We'll talk about that. And now that Jim Harbaugh is out, what's the balance of power in the Big Ten? Because it's easy to think, hey, offensive coordinator, plug and play. And for a couple of years, it might be it. But I've seen my fair share of seamless transitions that ultimately, they find a seam, if you know what I'm saying. So we definitely got to dive into that. Dan Quinn potentially coming to Seattle. The Chip Kelly rumors aren't going away. The Chip Kelly machine or whatever, it popped out there a couple of days and not been refuted, shall we say. So we got to dive into that as well. And like I mentioned, Mike Yam from NFL Network is going to be joining us coming up in hour number 3. But, yeah, when you look at where the Blazers are right now, it's going to be fascinating because then they got 2 back-to-back games against Denver coming up next week. Then you get a run of, let's see, 6 home games in a row. New Orleans, Minnesota twice. They're pretty good. Denver, Charlotte, Miami. I'm fascinated to see the direction where this team goes. They have not quit, which is, it's as silly as that is to say, that's still a thing. I know that it would be nice to be like, hey, you guys are getting paid tens of millions of dollars. Quitting is not an option, but they're human beings. Human beings, and at some point, right, hey, we keep losing every single night, and I was wondering if that Oklahoma City debacle was maybe the last straw. Good for them. Good for them to bounce back. Got a nice win. Houston's not great, but they're not terrible. They're like 20-23, I think. They don't play a lick of defense. But they're not terrible.
For what it's worth, though, Justin,
nice win on the road.
The Blazers do have the 3rd toughest remaining schedule in the NBA from here on out.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. But here's my thought. Like I said, this team's not a playoff team. This team's not anywhere close to a playoff team. But I don't know if this team is bottom of the barrel. I think this team is kind of in a weird smush there where, I think they're going to compete night in and night. Are they going to get blown out? Yeah, every once in a while. And depending on injury, when healthy, they're going to be able to put up a bit of a fight, and they're going to pull off a couple of upsets here or there. But come February, how many dudes get traded away, right? How many dudes get traded away? How many injuries become – because, injuries in January are 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Injuries in March are, hey, did we just shut it down for the season? But I'm going to live in the moment, and I'm going to be 10 toes down, and I'm going to be present right now. It was fun to watch Jeremy Grant hit the three-pointer last night. Did he call bank? Doesn't matter. Went in. Did he take about 7 steps before he shot the ball? Maybe. Didn't call it. Just like timeout didn't get called the night before. That 5-step little shimmy shake that Jeremy Grant did with 1.2 seconds left Didn't get called either. Bank it in. Let's go to overtime. Get a win. Nice win for the boys. All right. So we got more Blazer stuff coming up throughout the show because, again, we want to savor the wins. Don't get many of them. But obviously the huge news, but we haven't even talked, like the Doc Rivers thing is real. Doc Rivers is coaching Dame. That team that is going to be coming in less than a week with Dame's return to Moda Center is going to be coached by Doc Rivers. Washington Wizards have made a change at their head coaching position. But speaking of head coaches, Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh's back in the NFL. He is going down to Southern California. He's going to take over the Chargers. He's got Justin Herbert at quarterback. And they got some weapons there. You got Austin Eckler. You got Derwin James. Like, you've got some dudes. You got Bosa to work with. Is this the perfect hand-glove fit? And there is going to be a domino effect. Talk about that next here on 620 Rip City Radio. After years of flirtation, it finally happened. After years of will he, won't, like Ross and Rachel on Friends. Like, will they, won't they? Like Fox and Mulder on the X-Files. Like Jim and Pam on The Office, right? It was like, hey, we sat and watched for years. Like, is Jim Harbaugh going to go back to the NFL? It sure seems like it. Are Jim and Pam finally going to get together? Is Ross and Rachel finally going to get things figured out? And, of course, who else is a big Sam and Diane? That's a little bit before your time, but Sam and Diane on Cheers. Then it was Niles and Daphne. You familiar with Frasier? Brendan, you're not into Frasier?
Didn't watch Frasier.
It was a little before your time, but it ran forever. I thought maybe it was on in the Slaughter household. I love Frasier. But yeah, it was Niles and Daphne, and like much like the great sitcom, will they, won't they? Are they going to get together? Are they going to stay together? All that stuff. Meredith Grey and McDreamy, right? These are all great. That was will they, won't they's. Jim Harbaugh finally happened. Script writers in the football world finally said, all right, that's it. After all those years at Michigan, after all those years of flirting, right? It seemed like, and who was it on the show? I want to say it was Cam Mellor who was on the show. We asked about Jim Harbaugh, and he said, look, you can set your watch to the fact that every single year after the college football season is over, Jim Harbaugh is going to flirt with the NFL. And he's going to turn it into a contract extension at Michigan. And there was a time at Michigan where he wasn't the Jim Harbaugh that we know now, right? There was a time in Michigan where he was winning lots of games, but couldn't beat Michigan State, couldn't beat Ohio State. Let's see. Michigan record 10-3. Two of those losses to Michigan State and Ohio State. 10-3. Same thing there. 8-5. Like
Was that Michigan State with D'Antonio or Michigan State with old Mel before he was?
No, it was not. This was not Michigan State with Mel Tucker, who only made it, I think, 3 years. So
I know he had that 1-10 year. So.
Yeah, the 1-10 year got a really fat extension and then was like, I don't need to recruit anymore. And as a matter of fact, I may spend my phone calls instead of recruiting, maybe doing other things that are inappropriate on the phone. And
he likes his phone calls, okay? We'll leave it at that. Justin, he is not the first coach to like his phone calls.
Man.
We know this. Anyway, all that aside.
All that being said, yeah, just maybe you should have been recruiting instead of anyways. But it was a classic, like, big-time blue blood football program problem, which is our coach wins 10 games every single year, can't beat a rival. Finally, after a really bad COVID year, because they were 2-4 during COVID, and Jim Harbaugh and that coaching staff did not embrace the reality that was going on in 2020, and I don't blame them. I understand. I didn't really embrace the reality either. Finally, they bounced back 12-2 in 2021, and then last year get over the hump. They beat Ohio State, go 13-1, national champs this year. Jim Harbaugh is the bell. He did it again. Got Stanford to 12-1 before he left. Got the 49ers to the Super Bowl before it was a tough breakup there at the end. And then now finally, once again, Jim Harbaugh, top of the mountain. And I'm not surprised that he got the job with the Chargers. I am a bit surprised because I thought Michigan was going to make, and maybe they did. I thought Michigan was going to make a full court press and just offer literally offer the moon. How much of the big house do you want?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I did see from, it was either Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport this morning that
smart guys.
He did turn down, Michigan made him an offer to be the highest paid college football coach. Whatever that looks like, hard to say. Justin and I mentioned yesterday, do we really know what Lincoln Riley's making? Do we really know what, so on? But
yeah, but you know what those agents know?
They do.
We don't
Justin's
know, but
right.
those agents know. Do you think it's better? Because, for the most part, we know, how much coaches are getting paid because it's public universities. But, in the NFL, for years and years and years, we didn't know what Bill Belichick was getting paid. Turns out it was $25 million a year. Like, we didn't know what Pete Carroll was getting paid. The whole time I was in Seattle, I was like, we don't know what Pete Carroll was getting paid. Knew how much Russell Wilson was making because that goes on Spoke Track or whatever. But we didn't know. Is it better or worse? If you're like an agent, like, hey, I think it's almost better if there's kind of like certain coaches out there where you don't know exactly what they're making because then you can kind of go back. But, yeah, I don't think this was a money play. Here's what we know. Jim Harbaugh's kind of a weirdo.
Who has it better than them, Justin?
Exactly. Jim Harbaugh's kind of a weirdo. But here's the other thing we know. Massively competitive. Massively competitive. Right? We talked about this before. You go back to his time. I think it was John Gold, who joins the show from time to time, who's terrific. He talked about when he was covering Jim Harbaugh, who was 11-1 in 2006 for San Diego. Not San Diego State. No. The San Diego Toreros, which was FCS, 1AA at the time. And they're 11-1. And John Gold was like, Jim Harbaugh was talking one day. He was like, why aren't we ranked? And he's like, no, I think you guys are. He's like, no. Like in the top 25. It's like, yeah, you're FCS. You're not in that division. Like, we should be. Because that's how crazy competitive Jim Harbaugh is. He goes to Stanford. He took over an absolutely atrocious Stanford team, 4-8 that first year. But one of those four happened to be a 40-point underdog to USC, maybe the biggest upset in college football history from a point spread standpoint. 40-point dogs. They beat USC. And remember, he was poking the bear when he first got there. He's like, yeah, Pete Carroll's on his way out. He's leaving USC. Like, all the recruits, they should come here. Along the way, ruffling feathers, creating Pete Carroll. What's your deal, man? What's your deal? Goes for 2 so that they could put a 50 burger on USC when the game was over. In the spirit of Bo Schembechler, right? There's that old story of Bo Schembechler had Ohio State down, went for 2 to rub it in, and they asked Bo Schembechler, why'd you go for 2? And he said, because I couldn't go for 3. Like, that's who Jim Harbaugh is. That's that old school mentality, right? And then the Pete Carroll rivalry lasted into the NFL. And there's a very important thing that happened in Jim Harbaugh's career. Very important thing that happened. He made it to the Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers, but lost that Super Bowl. Now, it's very important as to who he lost to. He lost to the Baltimore Ravens, coached by his little brother. And as someone who is a big brother, who's a bit competitive, I could only imagine if you were in the same field and you were massively competitive and you know that there is that one trophy out there you don't have that your little brother has. That's got to mean something. And John Harbaugh has even talked about it on podcasts. Like, John Harbaugh's like, it drives him nuts. It drives him nuts. So it's like, why? So why would Jim Harbaugh leave what could potentially be massively lucrative job there at Michigan? I'm just going to guess the number is probably in the ballpark of $20 million. $20 million per. I think Brian Kelly's at 15, somewhere around there. We don't know what Lincoln Riley's making, but
do we know what DeBoer's making to replace Saban? Is that close to 10 now?
I believe so. I believe it's somewhere around 10.
Because you knew that he became,
or somewhere not quite. It might be like 8 or 9, because I believe Washington offered him 10, and from what Twitter's told me is that actually DeBoer took the Alabama job and less pay to go to Alabama, which ruffled some feathers up there in Huskyville.
It's understandable. Like I caught him yesterday, actually, Justin. Hey, it's funny. I don't think Kalen DeBoer ever went on the Pat McAfee show when he was Washington coach.
He did. He did when on College Game Day.
Okay, fair enough. But jumps on yesterday, and he's like, there was no way I was going to decline a place like this. And it's like, yeah, considering you started in Sioux Falls and we're NAIA, I get it. So,
well, we'll see if he feels that way in 3 years when that fan base chews him up and spits him out. And why aren't you?
You never have to work again.
If that's his motivation, great. I don't know if coaches are motivated that way, but we'll find out. Let's get back to Jim Harbaugh real quick. So Jim Harbaugh could potentially be the highest paid coach in all of college football. He's got a wagon at Michigan. NIL, like, through the roof. But I've told Brendan this, and I don't know if people quite understand this. I love college football. I love it. And I don't understand why anyone would ever want to leave college football. It's the best for me. And I spent a good chunk of time in an NFL market. And NFL people are different. College football is cute, but there's a reason why they call it the men's league, right? College football was a stepping stone, and when you get to the NFL, national championships, All-America, all that's cute. We play for Super Bowls here. And Jim Harbaugh, as a player, never won a Super Bowl. As a coach in the NFL, made it to the Super Bowl, never won it. And I believe, even though he had so much success at Michigan, he's 86-25. He was 144-52 in college. He's about a 60% winner in the NFL. But in college, 144-52. But they don't give away Lombardi trophies at the end of the college football playoff. They give away, well, are they going to change the trophy now? Because they had the Crystal Football, which was awesome. That was the best one. And then they went to this new trophy for the 4-team playoff. Now for the 12-team playoff, I wonder if they change up the trophy. Probably. They need to bring that Crystal Football back.
It's a good question. I don't know.
But they don't hand out Lombardis. And they don't give away Super Bowl rings. They give away national title rings. And so he takes the job with the Chargers. So, this is fascinating. Is San Diego, I'm going to do this so much. Is the Los Angeles Chargers a playoff contending team instantly with Jim Harbaugh as their head coach? That's a little bit of a get up, first take, hot takey question, but we have seen what can happen when you simply make a change and get the right quarterback with the right coach. We've seen the turnaround in not a matter of years, a matter of months. Houston Texans were a disaster of a franchise. They were in the playoffs this year. You go back a couple of years, the Jacksonville Jaguars were a disaster of a franchise. They were in the postseason last year. Also, funny how that works. I believe that 28-point comeback that the Jaguars had against the Chargers probably ultimately led to Jim Harbaugh getting this job. But it is going to be fascinating to see what happens now with Justin Herbert, because now it's kind of put up or shut up time for Herbie. Listen, let me state this. I love Justin Herbert. I love the fact that Justin Herbert contributes a ton of money to kids sports. That's youth sports in Eugene. It was an organization founded by a group of dads, one of which was my grandfather, right? I love the fact that Herbert and kids sports in Eugene, and he's from the 541. He is a Eugene guy. He's a Sheldon kid done good. He's also the best pro prospect quarterback that Oregon has put out since Dan Fouts. Dan Fouts being in the Hall of Fame and all. But it hasn't quite clicked. Do you know what I mean? You go back to college. He was never in the Heisman race. Bo Nix was in the Heisman race just this year. Justin Herbert never. Oh, yeah, but broke his collarbone sophomore year. Then Mario Cristobal put the handcuffs on him. Okay. Makes sense. And then, of course, his freshman year, Helfrich was on the way out. Then he broke his collarbone. Taggart left. 3 coaches in 3 years, and Cristobal took the handcuffs off him. All right, got it. Then he goes to the NFL. Anthony Lynn is his coach. Won't start him. Fluke accident on the sideline with, was it Tyrod Taylor?
It was.
Fluke accident with Tyrod Taylor going to get I think he had a rib injury, went to get a shot of something, and yeah, that's punctured lung. 10 minutes to go before kickoff. Hey, Herbert, you're starting.
Yeah, I wonder randomly if Tyrod Taylor, wonder if he won that lawsuit he brought against that Chargers team doctor that's no longer there.
I have a hunch it was settled out of court for probably
A lot of money.
A lot of money and a lot of NDAs. Yeah. Sign this. You don't say anything about it. You got to check. I think that's how it was handled.
One hand washes the other kind of a thing.
But I remember that year with Anthony Lynn because obviously at that point in time, it was like, you can't hold Herbert back anymore. But there was some very disastrous clock management issues, if you remember, at the end of that season. So then Anthony Lynn gets fired. Here comes Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley comes in. He's like, listen, I just go by the math, right? I got a calculator on the sideline. He doesn't really, but he might as well. Like, I got a slide rule and a calculator and an abac. Like, I got it all. And I go by the math. I go by the numbers. And it worked for a while up until, again, some questionable decisions. Did you just want to go for a tie? No, you're calling a timeout. Ticked off the Raiders. The Raiders then gained 15 yards, set themselves up for a field goal, won it, eliminated you, put the Steelers in the playoffs. Thank you. Didn't make the playoffs. Then finally came back, made the playoffs, 28-point lead. But odd choices with fourth down, going for it on your own 35. And I know we've talked about it a ton. It's got to be the toughest thing in professional sports is to do everything a certain way to get to where you are, and then to have people go like, yeah, but you can't do that anymore. It's like, but why? I did it this way to get here. This is how, like, NBA player, you play like this in high school, you play like this in college, you come to the NBA, yeah, you can't play like that here. It's like, but this is what got me here. So it's got to be tough, but it wasn't working. So now it's like, all right, Anthony Lynn, clock management issues, disastrous decision-making at the end. Not Herbie's fault, right? Taggart left, not Herbie's fault. Cristobal, handcuffs, not Herbie's fault. Anthony Lynn, not Herbie's fault. New coordinator, not Herbie's fault. Well, I think we're done with now Jim Harbaugh's there. Again, started this by saying, I love Justin Herbert. I do. But, Brendan, it's put up or shut up time for Justin Herbert. Now, it's got, like, rubber's going to meet the road at some particular point because you can't keep, and Justin Herbert's never done this, but the Herbert crew that I am a part of, like the Herbert defense team on the internet, like I am a part of it, has been like, well, it was Taggart, it was Cristobal, it was Anthony Lynn, it was Brandon. I'm like, look at these clowns. Now he's playing for Jim Harbaugh. If you don't make the playoffs,
it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. You want a guarantee in life?
There are no guarantees in life.
Well, this is one of them. I'll put my stamp on it. I mean,
all right, we'll see.
You look
tuna bet.
Disgusting. No.
Tuna bet. You said guaranteed. Come on, Brendan. You said guaranteed.
Justin, I'm a grown adult. I'm not going to eat something I don't want to eat just because.
Well, you said guaranteed. You wouldn't have to eat it. If the Chargers don't make the playoffs, I make you a tuna sandwich.
No, but yes, thanks for your offer. But no, I think I mentioned
the fans. I mean, the people. Think of the people.
Hey, the people know I'm a picky eater. But no, last point on this, Justin, real quick. He's done this before. Jim Harbaugh took a quarterback who couldn't win in Alex Smith. He could not win.
Yeah.
Was left to be a bust. They said, this guy is terrible. What's he doing his first year? Ho-hum, they go 13-3.
Yeah.
Completely saves his career. So everything you've said about Herbert, totally true.
And I love Justin Herbert.
The excuses can't go anymore.
We're done now.
But at the same token, Justin, if Jim Harbaugh can't win with Justin Herbert, how about the other side of that coin?
That's what I'm saying. There's
so I think Herbert.
If they don't win in the next 2 years, Herbert's gone. He's gone.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting.
By the way, I mentioned I had a crazy stat. I got 2 crazy college football stats. Are you ready for these? First, there were 4 teams in the college football playoff this year. 3 have a new head coach. Yeah. 4 teams in the college football playoff this year. 4.
Yeah.
Have a new head coach.
And to add on to that,
Michigan Washington, and Alabama. And obviously, DeBoer went from one to the other. But
Sure.
the only one, Steve Sarkisian, the only one that's still there. Other crazy stat, there are now 3 active coaches in college football that have a national championship ring. You probably know this because you gave me the nod. Can you name
Great
them?
minds, man. Great minds.
Can you name them?
It's Dabo,
Boom.
Kirby Smart, and
The third one's a little tough.
yeah, hold on. Oh gosh, Dabo, Kirby Smart, and
He's not at the team he won it with. Yeah.
oh my gosh, I saw this tweet yesterday. I'm so embarrassed. Who is it, Justin?
ACC coach. Not at the team he won the national title with. You kind of forget he's still coaching. Very old.
No, Jimbo's done. Who?
Matt Brown.
Oh my God! I would have never.
I know, Matt
I would have
Brown,
never,
North
folks.
Carolina.
Yep, I would have never, folks. That. In the words of Porky Pig, that's all for Brendan. That is wow. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Now I did it to you on the air, which was a bit unfair, but I sat on my couch going like, Jimbo or Dabo, Kirby.
I would have completely
finally
forgot
I was like,
about Mac. Yep.
I was Googling, like, is Gene Chizik still coaching somewhere? Like, nope, he's not.
They would have said, Brendan, your feet go in the fire. If you can't answer this, Justin, my feet would be in the fire.
All right. You know what would happen, though, if your feet were in the fire? You'd be nice and toasty warm. And you know what? Maybe you are cranking up that heat bill a little bit. Maybe cranking up that heater, the furnace, whatever it is at your house, and you're wondering, why is this heat bill costing so much? Well, maybe it's your windows. Right? Maybe you don't have proper windows. Maybe you don't have a proper roof. Maybe you need to call DeBella, who's the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers, but they can also help you save up to 30% on your energy bills by taking care of roofing, windows, siding. All those renovations can lead to energy bills going down, down, down. Plus, dealing with the ice storm or dealing with the massive amount of rain we're dealing with. How's your roof holding up? Is it leaking? Is it aging? Do you trust your roof at all? Maybe it's time to get a free quote from the good folks at DeBella's, and maybe you can be one of the 15,000 plus customers who have given them a 5-star review on Google for their excellent work. 15,000 5-star reviews. And plus, now is the perfect time because you can get 0 down and no payments till 2025. That's on approved credit. 0 down and no payments till 2025 on approved credit. Visit DeBella.us for a free, no obligation appointment. Make updating your home super easy. DeBella, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. All right, time to wrap up hour number one. Nice win for the Blazers last night, taking it to the Houston Rockets. Bank in three-pointer at the buzzer to tie the game and put it into overtime. And did the Blazers blink? No, put it on.
It was open, the bank, Justin.
Never gets old, by the way.
No.
Is the bank open? And our good friend, who's going to be joining the program tomorrow, Travis Demers is going to be on the show tomorrow. Did you? You were at trivia, so you saw the game. I don't know if they had the volume up. Probably
No
not.
volume, but we saw the game.
Because you're playing trivia. Demers knocked it out of the park. Like when you get buzzer beater calls, I would imagine, because I've very rarely done broadcasting of games, even more rare play-by-play. I think I've done it 3 times in my 20-some years of being on the air. I've done like play-by-play like 3 times. Man, you get an NBA buzzer-beating 3 to go to overtime? That's your moment to shine? Some guys don't handle it well. Demers crushed it. He crushed it last night. So we'll talk to Travis tomorrow on the program, as he will either be probably in San Antonio. So we'll get his thoughts on the churros, get his thoughts on the river walk, all that kind of stuff.
Hot take, Justin.
Yeah.
I think I said this before. Riverwalk, it's just okay.
I've never been there.
It's just okay. I'll say this. Like, when you think of San Antonio, it's like, oh, the Riverwalk. It's just okay. It's kind of like one of those things like growing up here, we have rivers everywhere. I know it's cool.
Well, you went to a very interesting trip. Was it a year or 2 ago where you just...
April. Yeah, it was last April.
Last year, you were just like, I'm going to the great state of Texas, which... Awesome. I love Texas. Austin's great. Stopped off at Magnolia in Waco because, well, I have a wife. And I love Dallas. Had family that had a lake house outside of Dallas. Like, I love Texas. Texas is the best. Lakes in Texas, weird because they're hot.
Oh, that'd be great.
But it's weird, though, because our entire life, you go to the lake, even if it's 98 degrees. Shout out Nick Lachey. Even if it is 98 degrees outside, you jump in a lake in the great state of Oregon, it's going to be chilly. Perfectly refreshing, but it's going to be chilly. Went to the family lake house outside of Dallas in the summer where it's a gajillion degrees, and it was like bathwater. It was weird. It threw me for a loop.
It's like going to Florida or Hawaii, man. You just get that water that's just,
Well, that's like
when our ocean water is, 50 degrees here. It's
shout out the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean still crushes it. Like, it's the best of the oceans, wouldn't you say? The Pacific.
Oh, good. Well, again, you're asking my opinion, so goodness, no. No, like whatever. Like you could throw in. I mean,
it's the biggest.
All right, I'll put the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii. The Pacific Ocean.
It all counts.
Temperatures are different, Justin.
It all counts.
I can swim in the Pacific in Hawaii or in California or Mexico. I guess that's
it's
kind
still
of the Pacific.
Cold in California though. Like you go down to like San Diego and go to the beach.
Colder.
It's still gets like a lake here in the summer.
Yes, and lakes are solid, Justin. You can't go swim in 50 degrees. You know what I mean?
But yeah, that was.
All that to say,
we're not going to do Round Ball Rock today. Hey, Doc Rivers is the coach of the Bucks. That's what we're going to talk about. But I would rather talk about this. I very much remember, it's one of my favorite stories. Kid from California came to live in tiny little Winston, Oregon. And I think we were on a football trip. So it was like we went to the coast to play as middle school football. We went to play a team on the coast, and it was like a weekend thing. And I was like, all right, let's and we're all going to go to the beach. And kid moved up from California. Boy, he was so pumped. He's like, sweet, we are and like this was September in Oregon, right? It's beautiful.
Still pretty warm outside, yeah.
Yeah, and so even on the coast, right? We got one of those nice coast days, and it's like, all right, we're going to stop off. We're going to go to the coast. And I remember, like, we stopped at the store, and I'm like, are you going to get anything to eat? And he's like, I'll just get something when we go to the beach. And I'm like, there is nothing at the beach. He's like, there's not, like, concession stand? Like, no. Nothing.
Bit of a different culture.
There is
for sure.
nothing at the beach. We are going to go there, and we are going to look. Is there anything else? No. Can you jump in the water? You can. Wouldn't advise it.
I'm assuming you were Southern Coast because I know there's stuff like that at like Seaside. Like you can get stuff like,
But that's not the beach. That's like more the boardwalk there. But yeah, Seaside has got stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, you go to like
Oh, I know what you mean. There's
on the beach
nothing.
where the sand meets the water, like you can't go and get
This ain't Atlantic City.
a snow cone. You know what I mean? Like they don't exist. You know this. All right. Fantastic round ball rock there. Doc Rivers, coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. We may talk about that coming up in Make or Miss. But we have got more reaction on Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL. What's the balance of power like now in the Big Ten Conference? Now that Oregon and Washington heading to that as well. Seahawks making decisions potentially on head coaches. We got a lot of stuff to dive into in hour number 2, 620 Rip City Radio.
what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 7 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Justin Myers with you. Blazers get the win over the Houston Rockets last night, 137-131 in dramatic fashion. Boy, it was drama on both sides of the coin for the Blazers. Oklahoma City, bad drama. Good drama last night as Jeremy Grant hits a banked-in fadeaway three-pointer to tie the game at the end of regulation. And then see the Blazers get the 137-131 victory. Anthony Simons led the way with 33 points. Blazers next up at San Antonio tomorrow night. The Los Angeles Chargers have their man, Jim Harbaugh, coming back to the NFL with a 5-year deal. He leaves Michigan after winning the national title. And reports, including those of friend of the program, Brady Henderson, say that Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, is in Seattle to interview with the Seahawks later today. Does he have a potential package deal with Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator? That's what we have been hearing. More on that coming up later on in the big show. We've got Mike Yam from the NFL Network, but Hour 2 starts right now at 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. A lot of stuff to dive into on the big show today. It was a hectic Wednesday. Hectic in a fun way. Hectic in a good way. So you got Jim Harbaugh going to the Los Angeles Chargers, and a lot of people feel like that is, what do they call it, turnkey? It's a turnkey operation, right? It is, some call it a rubber stamp deal, where just, boom, glove, hand, perfect fit. And I guess when you look at the track record, Jim Harbaugh's never lost, wherever he's been. I mean, Bill Belichick has lost without Tom Brady, lost to Cleveland. Pete Carroll, Hall of Famer Pete Carroll, but he lost with the Patriots too. Nick Saban, as good as it gets, right, in terms of college football coach, nobody better than Nick Saban. He didn't have a very good run at the end of the Miami Dolphins deal, right? Steve Spurrier, he went to the NFL, couldn't make it. Ran into the same problem that Chip Kelly ran into, only Steve Spurrier did it before, and Chip's a really smart dude, so I'm surprised that he didn't. Steve Spurrier's like, yeah, I'm just bringing all my Florida guys. It's like, yeah, Florida can't win the NFC East. Sorry, Coach Spurrier, it's not going to happen. But I heard this statement. Brendan, is Jim Harbaugh the greatest in terms of player and coach accomplishments? Now, never won a Super Bowl as a quarterback, but was an 11-year starting quarterback in the NFL. Won 2 division titles as a coach at San Diego, the Toreros. Went to the BCS with Stanford. Went to a Super Bowl with the 49ers. Has now won a national championship with Michigan. I'm trying to think of somebody who was a player and a coach who had that kind of accomplishments. Because Michael Jordan, greatest player of all time. Now, he never coached, but I would say not the greatest executive. Really never put together a championship caliber team. We saw Magic Johnson try to coach a couple of times. Didn't work.
I'll preface by saying I think he's a bit unique in that regard, Justin, but some guys that come to mind, I
have one name, but I'm wondering if it's going to be on your tip of your tongue.
Like a Dan Campbell. I know he hasn't done it yet, but the fact he's in the NFC Championship, he was a former player, tight end for many years. Yeah. I'm trying to think D'Amico Ryans was also a former player, as was Kevin O'Connell. So there are some guys, but no one with the longevity of a career or starting as.
Let's compare these two, and this is a fun game. Better player coach, Jim Harbaugh, Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr. Yeah, Steve Kerr.
Those 5 rings as a player and 4 as a coach.
Yeah,
that's a lot. But now he was the role player. Jim Harbaugh was a quarterback.
But correct me if I'm wrong, the Bulls don't get at least one, maybe two.
It was one. It was the Jazz.
One
yeah.
for sure, and then maybe still a second one that he played a pretty big role in. I mean,
well, he was a starting player on the Bulls, right? You can't. Or was he a starter? I think so.
You're asking the wrong person.
I'm trying to think. Like
I was a little at the time.
sometimes Ron Harper started, and then maybe Kerr would come off the bench. But either way, he was a contributing factor for those Bulls championships. Hit like you said, hit a big shot in '97. The '97 one, he hit the big shot, and yeah,
Jimmy Johnson played, right?
Yeah, but not in the NFL.
Okay.
He played. Yeah. He won a national championship at Arkansas as a player.
That's right.
But did not win as.
That's what I'm
thinking.
thinking.
Did not go in the NFL. Mike Ditka did play in the NFL.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Justin and I are pulling out some names.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is a fun game because you think about like what Harbaugh has been able to do in the football. Like he is such an enigma. Like he's not the greatest coach of all time in terms of NFL or college. Or he's not the greatest quarterback of all time. But, Brendan, what other person in the football universe, starting quarterback for 11 years, I believe, starting quarterback for 11 years, went to a Super Bowl and has won a national championship? We talk about the rarity of actually being able to coach in both college and the NFL. It is such a rare thing. Because you have to have such a different mentality. And then to take that. So Harbaugh has had success at college and in the NFL, which you can count on one hand. Right? Who are the guys that you would say? Pete Carroll, Jimmy Johnson. Barry Switzer won a championship with the Cowboys, so I guess you got to put him in there, but he didn't have a lot of staying power in the NFL.
I had to Google to confirm, but another name that I didn't think of, Art Shell with the Raiders. Played with them, won 3 Super Bowls, then obviously became their coach. I don't think ever...
Never made it to a Super Bowl, though.
Yeah, took them to the AFC Championship game, but that's a
good one.
That's kind of the best I can think of because he was, I believe he was an offensive lineman, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And, well, 3-time Super Bowl champ. So that would be the closest, but Justin, I think this is...
Isn't it crazy? Jim Harbaugh is such a unicorn.
Yes.
And we get all lost in the khakis and the I don't eat chicken because chicken's a timid bird. And then
is that real?
He said that. That is a real quote from Jim. Google Jim Harbaugh timid bird. He talked about how he didn't eat chicken because chicken was a timid bird and he did not want to digest the DNA of a timid bird. He walked it back though to say that actually that's not. He was wrong on chickens, but
it was bad. Not only is a chicken a nervous bird,
it's a nervous bird. Yeah.
He also said it's responsible for some type of sickness in the human population.
Yeah,
someone else
said, the stuff we talk about because it's that's the flashy, shiny. Hey, Harbaugh, Captain Khakis, and my performance enhancing is steak and whole milk, right? That's all he talks about. That's the best thing the best performance enhancer you could have is red meat and whole milk and all that stuff. But he's also a 11-year starting quarterback, national championship coach, and while he coached 6 years in the NFL, went to a Super Bowl. It's amazing. And I'm not a big Harbaugh guy. I'm just saying what we are witnessing right now is something that it's never been done.
Yeah. So this was a couple years ago. Just real quick to finish that thought, Justin, because this is mind-boggling.
Also, by the way, he's obsessed with Judge Judy and P.F. Chang's.
I do like Judge Judy. That's solid.
Jim Harbaugh went to a taping of Judge Judy. There is video footage of Jim Harbaugh sitting front row at a Judge Judy because he loved the show so much. Yeah. He also loves P.F. Chang's.
That's pretty, I'm like, it's interesting. But no, quarterback for Harbaugh early in his Michigan career, I believe, 2017, Wilton Spate. I don't know if you remember him or not, Justin, but the quote was, he thinks, it's him talking about Harbaugh, some type of sickness worked its way into the human population when people began eating white meats instead of beef and pork. And he believes it 100%. So that's, I saw a story yesterday that said Los Angeles enjoy getting this quirky guy with some of his, foot on the ground, thinks he stands up for and believes him. We're not going to get into that on this show. But, he's outspoken with what he believes.
It's going to be crazy. It is going to be kind of nuts. Now, some of that is a bit of a smokescreen. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he wears khakis. Like, if you were to ask, average Joe, what do you know about Jim Harbaugh? He's he's kind of a weirdo. Yeah. But in a football world where Nick Saban couldn't make it in the NFL, right? Nick Saban couldn't make it in the NFL. Chip Kelly, the run that Chip Kelly had at Oregon, unprecedented, couldn't make it in the NFL. In a world where there's basically Jimmy Johnson and Pete Carroll, and that's kind of about it, right? Other than Barry Switzer, I think you could throw Barry Switzer in there. Urban Meyer, I know we don't like Urban Meyer's a bad dude, but
have we let him out of timeout yet?
It's one of those things where it's
cancel culture timeout. I should say
separate art from you cannot deny his ability to win big at the college level, but also dude, you flat out lied about not knowing anything about your assistant coach who was abusing domestically his wife. And she was texting your wife, and you said, I don't know about it. And even if I did, I may have forgotten about it because I have a condition that I forget things. And then they had to put out a statement saying, yeah, but not football, though. Only other things, right? In that kind of stuff. But cannot deny his ability to coach the game of college football, right? He's won, 3 national titles. So
at 2 different places.
Went undefeated at Utah. Won a national title at Florida.
Oh, and then don't forget.
Won a national title at Ohio State. He was, could have, he is, other than Saban, in the discussion for one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. He went to the NFL, and it chewed him up, and it spit him out.
Well, and don't forget.
Chewed him up and spit him out.
If it wasn't, in today's world, I don't think this would even be an infraction anymore. But remember when he went undefeated when Ohio State couldn't go to a bowl game for Jim Tressel. So, ho-hum, there's another 12 wins, Justin. So it's
So Urban Meyer did that.
He dominated at college.
Couldn't make it in the NFL.
Nope.
And
he kicked his kicker.
He did do that.
We think. None of us were there, Justin. There's a lot of reports that he kicked his kicker.
Also,
what a mess.
I am all for hard-nosed, disciplined coaching. I think it's important. I do. I don't think you can win without discipline and hard-nosed coaching. I also get very irritated as someone who has never once ever served a day in the military in my life to hear people talk about, I run my football like a military unit. It's let's have a little respect for the boots. You know what I mean? I always talk about respect for boots, work boots, cowboy boots, military boots. If you don't do the thing, don't put the boots on. I don't do boot cosplay. You know what I mean? You got to respect the boots. And it was the coaches that are I've never once served nor signed up, but I run football like a military outfit. It's I don't want to say stolen valor, but a little bit of stolen valor. You know what I'm saying? But that guy, NFL chewed him up and spit him out because you can't run college football like you run an NFL team and vice versa. NFL, you're dealing with grown men with families and financial decisions, and college kids you can boss around. NFL's no, you don't talk to me that way. I'm on a 4-year deal worth about, 18 mil per. Good luck cutting me. I do what I want. So, all that being said, fascinating spot with the Chargers. And, it is a unique spot because I know everybody talks about Justin Herbert. And it makes sense, right? No other opening had a quarterback the caliber of Justin Herbert. Right? You think about what were the openings that Desmond Ridder,
Geno,
Bryce Young,
Sam Howell at the Commanders.
Sam Howell, those are the quarterbacks of the openings that were up in the NFL right now, and boom, Justin Herbert. And not only that, though, you got Austin Eckler, you got Joey Bosa,
Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Just talent.
Derwin James, that guy's a player.
They have a lot of talent.
They've got weapons.
They do. It's not like you're starting from zero. That's why I said if Harbaugh,
Chiefs better win the Super Bowl this year. Just saying. Chiefs better win the Super Bowl this year.
Do you think Andy Reid's like, oh, that guy's in my division now? Lovely. Hey, Patrick, we're going to need to spend some extra time.
I mean, I joke, but it's still Patrick Mahomes.
Got to prove you can beat him.
All right, we may talk about this later on in the program. I like Josh Allen, and I think Josh Allen is a tremendous football player, and I think the Buffalo Bills are going to be just fine for the next couple of years with Josh Allen as their quarterback. This ridiculous notion that Josh Allen is better than Patrick Mahomes, that I saw some hot take, if there was only a way to find out,
to prove it.
Why can't people just look at scoreboards and just understand that that's the be-all and end-all? You got it. Too many takes, too many overthinkers in this world. Not enough scoreboard. Just look at the scoreboard. All right. Coming up next, we got Make or Miss. We got Mike Yam. Love Mike Yam. He's going to be coming up in hour number 3 from the NFL Network. But Make or Miss is next, 620 Rip City Radio. Herbert. So really looking forward to talking to Mike Yam in an hour from now.
Accomplished author now too, Justin.
Got a kid's book out there, so we'll talk to Mike Yam about the book and also, hey, ho hum. There's only 2 games coming up this weekend, by the way. And look, I understand like this is kind of how it works. Is the coaching carousel? Where's Belichick going to go? And with Jim Harbaugh, he's at the Chargers now, and all that kind of stuff. And then in the college football world, right, is the balance of power changing it up in the college football world? Because if, like, I mentioned it in hour number 1, 4 teams were in the college football playoff. They were 4 elite teams. Yes, 4 elite teams, even though maybe Florida State should have been in there. But 3 of those teams now have a different head coach. Now, one of those head coaches, and Kalen DeBoer, went from Washington to Alabama, but this is a massive shift in the college football power dynamic, because I don't care how seamless you think the transition is. Situations are situational. Right? I was there from the Chip Kelly to Mark Helfrich, and while you had Marcus Mariota, that was a seamless transition, and then guess what? Then it wasn't so much. And you got a Michigan team, and I get it, right? Sharon Moore, who likely is going to get the job, I think I saw a thing. They've got to, like, post the job for 7 days. The wackadoos that are going to be applying for that job, by the way, is like Indeed, like your Indeed thing pops up. It's like, hey, Michigan head coach football. Are you interested in this? Like, yeah, here's my resume. But Sharon Moore's going to get the job. We're too late into the recruiting cycle. He can keep the coaching staff fairly intact, I believe. But, Brendan, they're losing J.J. McCarthy. Who's the running back?
Michigan, Blake Corum. He's
gone, right? They're the national champions and the reigning champions of the Big Ten. And I don't know if they're the best team going into next year with USC, with Oregon. Washington's going to have some hiccups because they lost a lot of their 2 deep and have a new coach and everything else. But what a shakeup. What a shakeup in the college football world. And like, what's Alabama going to be with Kalen DeBoer? Is this just going to be like, hey, keep all? And I saw that DeBoer has done a pretty good job of kind of settling the earthquake, I guess, because it was like everybody's leaving. It's like, yeah, hold on. He kept some guys, but is Alabama now a powerhouse still? Is Michigan going to be a powerhouse still? There's a lot of questions going on. But speaking of questions, one of them is, will this particular statement that Brendan is about to make, will it make the cut? Will it miss the cut? What do we call this segment? It's make or miss, not just a clever name. Here you go.
It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good! Oh, my goodness! Oh, and a big miss.
It's make or miss here on RCM.
I mean, maybe you have to think about taking off the crossbar make in the intro, Brendan, and putting in the Jeremy Grant. Bank in last night. How about that for a make real quick? Jeremy Grant, 3-pointer at the buzzer to tie the game. Make.
Yeah.
Needed it.
Yeah.
Felt good.
It did. It did.
Did it feel good to you?
I mean, like I said, I don't expect this team to win. Is it nice when they do? I suppose, but you know, I'm all about the ping pong balls.
It hurts your little ping pong ball heart every once in a while.
I'm all about the ping pong balls, man. But you know, hey, you know, it's all. I will never be.
Don't worry. Look, there's a trade deadline. There's some potential. But they got a lot of games with the Nuggets coming up.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to say. What kind of a fan would you be if you sat here and said, I am ticked off at them winning? So I'm not saying that. It's just, I know they're not really going to do much this year, like you mentioned. They're probably, even if they turned it on, not going to be a playoff team.
No, but I think
so. That's where it's like, yeah,
we got to win little victories, right, with this Blazer team. And you and I had a frank conversation about a week and a half ago, and it was, I think, appropriate. Did this team quit on Chauncey Billups? Because it sure seemed like it from January 1st to like the 17th, where they had one win and they had a 60-point loss in there, a handful of 30-point losses. A 29-point loss to the Dallas Mavericks without Luka. Luka keeps kicking dudes out of the gym. Did you see that last night?
I saw him get in a fight with a reporter. Did you see that?
Well, it was over. So apparently there was a kid, young guy, maybe a little boozed up. He was chiming. He was chiming at Luka. I think he made some fat jokes. And then finally Luka said, "Get this guy out." Well, he was sitting behind where I think a handful of reporters. The reporter was like, but in the modern history of Michigan football, he is the all-time greatest coach, right? In the post-Bo Schembechler cable TV era,
Joey,
he
I
coached a
know.
national title game.
True, but
There's a lot of factors
he
there.
went 4-8 and lost to Gary Anderson. His last game.
Did do that.
Gary Lee
That's-
Anderson
that-
won. I think he won 8 games. In
Is
order
Lee like the most common middle name, you think,
perhaps
of anybody?
Don't ask why I know. It's just
What's your middle name?
Scott.
Scott.
Yep.
Was it named after anybody?
My dad.
Mine is Parker.
That was a thing in my family. Was firstborn son after the dad.
I got you.
kind of.
So,
yeah.
here's the deal. Can I tell you about the family middle names of the Myers?
Go for it.
My younger brother's middle name is my mom's maiden name. My youngest brother's middle name is my dad's, so my paternal grandmother's maiden name. My middle name was named after a kid my mom heard at Disneyland one time, and she's like, I always liked Parker. No family history whatsoever. All right. Mom's maiden name, paternal. Justin, how'd you get the name Parker? Well, my mom went to Disneyland when she was a teenager, and she heard somebody calling for a Parker, and in her head, she liked that name.
There you go,
That's
man.
how I got it.
There you go. But yes.
Shout out to middle names.
Yeah, right. It's definitely not something.
I had a friend it was him and brother and sister. 3 all had the same middle name, Lee. All 3, same.
Yeah, I'm like, it's definitely interesting because I feel like everybody kind of has I've never heard of that before. 3 of the same, like all.
But you have the BR names for all the Slaughter, you and your brothers, right?
Brendan, Brogan, Braden.
Boom, you got the BR in it, and then sister didn't have to be Brenda or anything.
Nope, she's Alyssa. She's Alyssa. Very.
Do
easy.
they have the same middle name though?
Who?
Younger brothers.
No.
Okay,
Everyone's different. So
Got it,
I'm after
okay.
Dad. Alyssa's after Grandma. Yeah.
Maybe somebody
boy,
heard a name at Disneyland one time. Like that's how I got my middle name.
youngest one was a name they liked. Third one was Mom's dad.
Youngest. Like
Yeah.
that's
Braden's was his is Noah, and my mom just liked that name.
who's our associate producer?
Brogan.
Brogan.
Yeah, he's 18, so he's joining the club, the adult club.
What's
of,
his middle name?
Robert,
Brogan.
which
Robert.
is
BR.
which is Mom's dad's name.
What's up, Bobby?
Co-figure.
He's an associate producer. In name only. Gets no
In
payment.
name only. I told him we offer no salary, no benefits. Just in name only.
Just keep coming up with ideas.
All right, let's get to another
But yeah,
one.
that being said, I don't think Michigan's going to be able to. Well, first off,
Yeah.
think about what's going to happen. Let's talk about this real quick. Oregon's coming to. I know that I'm a little bit out over my skis, getting all jacked for Dan Lanning, a guy that has yet to beat Washington and has yet to, win a conference title. I get it. I'm a little bit over my skis on that, but can't deny the talent that the guy's building and the talent that he's acquiring. So you got Oregon coming to the Big Ten. It's not like USC's going to stop paying for dudes. You know what I mean? USC's coming to the Big Ten. Who knows what's going to happen with UCLA? That's still a whole thing. But, you've got USC and Oregon, and I give Jed Fish 2 years before Washington's a wagon again.
Oh, and he leaves. I hope you realize, he will not. That is the latest stepping stone for a guy who wants to get back to the NFL so bad. So, again, we'll see Washington. I hope it works out for you, but you might want to be real happy
But
with
in
what
2 years, they're going to be good. Maybe in a year. In a year, they're going to be. I think they'll be competitive this year.
No, Matt, but they missed.
Because they kept their quarterback. They got the Will Rogers guy. If he didn't come back, oh boy, they were in some trouble. But they got a quarterback. They've got still. They're going to work that spring transfer portal. They've got NIL money to spend. Washington. So you got Oregon, Washington, USC all coming into the conference. Ohio State's not going anywhere, right? Iowa. They finally are going to get a real offensive coordinator. But, Iowa's been a wagon. Just they can't score the football. There's a lot going on in the Big Ten. You know what I mean? And for Michigan to think that it's just going to be hey, we beat Ohio State. And I know you don't want to hear this. Jonathan Smith might take a couple years. Michigan State's going to be there. They'll be there, I think.
I hope they're not.
I know you don't, and I respect that pettiness, but I think they'll be there.
I mean,
but I'm just saying,
I'll say that
to think that Michigan is with all that going on, and then Harbaugh leaves, that's gonna be a tough task.
I mean, maybe he's got better resources, Justin, but a little bird told me that he didn't have a winning season at Oregon State till year 4, and pretty terrible spot they're building from Michigan State. And a little bird said he's got a losing record without a quality defensive coordinator.
Is that little bird you that Googled this or knew it by heart because you lived it?
Yes.
Okay.
Entirely. But, it's just the things that me and my Beaver alumni discuss and talk about as, like Justin
Had
said.
the patience of a fan base. It'd be interesting to see the patience of the Michigan State fan base.
I'll credit Justin, folks, because a couple years back, Justin's like, the memories were great, but Freddie Freeman is a turncoat. And
gone.
It's exactly
He
the
played for
same.
the Dodgers.
Good memories, Jonathan Smith. He had turncoat. You ain't welcome back in Corbo. Anyway, up next to the next one here on Make or Miss, Justin. Jim Harbaugh will make David Shaw his OC in a true let's run it back like it's 07.
Man, that would be nuts. That I didn't even think about that. I mean, David Shaw was interviewing.
I think it makes perfect sense. It really does. David Shaw wants to get back to the NFL. He go be a coordinator for a couple of years. And, dude, they've got chemistry together. They dominated everywhere they were together. Like, I'm down for it.
Let's just throw it into the universe. Let's throw it a make, right? It'll be interesting to see that. Like, you try to make Justin Herbert basically Andrew Luck when he was at Stanford. Now,
a lot of talent comparisons there.
Here's what's going to be interesting, though. Everywhere that Harbaugh has gone, from Stanford to the 49ers to Michigan, like they are smash mouth, run the football. I don't think Chargers have. They got Eckler, but he's not a smash mouth, run the football kind of guy. He's like a hybrid, use him all over the place guy. They need to go out and get a couple running backs. And so, like, I understand why people think this is going to instantly put them up into the playoffs. Are they a Super Bowl contender as we sit here right now in 2024? Maybe, but the way he likes to play football is not really the way that the Chargers maybe offensive line is built. So that's going to be fascinating. But you can also, you make transitions, you get free agents, you get all sorts of stuff. So the thing with Harbaugh,
I'd love to see it.
Here's the thing with Harbaugh, though. Everywhere he's gone, he's ultimately won. But, Brendan, he's also had to build. He had to build at Stanford. He had to build with the 49ers. He had to build with Michigan. He's had to build. So I don't know.
Didn't take him long to build with the Niners, though.
He still had to build. I mean,
if he came in and won 13,
but like it took him 5 years to go to the Super Bowl. Ran into a buzzsaw that was the Legion of Boom.
Was it really? I didn't think it was quite that long.
It was 5 years.
For him to
go to the Super Bowl
after
taking over the 49ers.
Because they went, 13-3 in his first year. No, it was only year 2 that he went to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
No. No way that's true.
Harbaugh. Yeah. 2011, they went 13-3, lost in the NFC Championship game. Year 2, they lost the Ravens Super Bowl. Year 3, lost the Seahawks NFC Championship. And year 4, 8-8 and out.
I got my years all mixed up.
I said I don't mean to be correcting, but I'm like, yeah, Jim Harbaugh made the Super Bowl.
I got my years all mixed up.
He made the Super Bowl really quickly. But to your point, like, what would you say if they came in and won like 10? Like, what do you think is the ceiling?
There's some 49er fan out there just screaming at the radio right now, and I apologize. I got my Jim Harbaugh years mixed up.
Lots of records, years.
My fault. A lot of numbers in front of my face.
But yes, so I don't know, Justin. It would be very interesting to see the division, the fact that Chiefs own it, the fact that Sean Payton's also there. Like, you'll have to work through it, but I think he's going to do very well.
All right, we have got one more segment before we wrap up hour number 2. But before we get to that, I do want to tell you about the good people at DeBella. Speaking of, Jim Harbaugh's got to go and build. You know what? You got something you want improved around your home. Jim Harbaugh's going to have to improve a roster. You want something improved around your home? DeBella. That's who you want to call. Whether it's roofing, whether it's windows, whether it's siding, even bathroom renovations. Right? If you were stuck in your house last week in the snow and the ice, and the roof held up and the windows held up, and you were like, you know what? I'm sick of looking at this bathroom. You need to update and renovate this bathroom. Well, DeBella can do that. They're the best in the business. Is that me saying that? Well, I know I'm physically saying it, but it's because they got 15,000 plus 5-star reviews on Google. All right, wrapping up hour number 2. Did the YouTube catch me dancing a little bit? I
Might have caught a glimpse of
can't
it.
help myself. That is a banger. It is. That is such.
This music was designed for Justin to dance.
Oh, it's the best. Like I don't know if I could properly explain to you like Taylor Swift's taken over the world. Taylor Swift's taken over the world, and good for her. But like, Britney was first. Britney, like 1999, like the cultural impact of Britney Spears. Now Taylor Swift, a lot more talented. More staying power. Probably much better people around her. Much better career decisions, all that stuff. But 1999, Britney Spears in like the world that was TRL. You had the cable TV was still a huge thing, and internet was becoming a huge thing. And there was a point in about 1999 till about like 2004 where they were like both peaking at the same time. Like you would watch something on TV and then you would run to your internet and all that stuff. It culminated with the, speaking of Britney, the Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson halftime show. And then we learned about the power of the internet in that particular halftime show.
Yeah, did you see the JT news yesterday?
We got a new song out today, right? I think it might be out right now. New song out today.
Yeah, good for him, man.
Potential new album coming out.
It's been a hot minute since we've had fresh Justin Timberlake.
He's only had, I believe, 4 albums.
Yeah, it's really, he got into acting, man. He wanted to be an actor for a brief moment, which, hey.
Pretty good actor.
He was solid in some movies. But
pretty good actor.
I need some, Justified to come back.
Cry Me a River. Like,
bring it
get
back,
him
man.
and Timberland back together and get Cry Me a River. This is the point of the show. For a long, long time, we did Thirsty Thursdays, but I wanted to, and I don't want to abandon our love of discussion of food and drink, but I wanted to ask young Brendan, because, a lot of people are probably on their, still kicking it with their New Year's resolutions. There's probably a lot of people that are maybe trying to avoid guilty food pleasures. But earlier during the show, it was not on the air, it was off the air. You were mentioning there's a ad for the KFC chicken wraps with, like, they have mac and cheese in the chicken wrap.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a thing. So it's a tortilla with fried chicken.
Like a strip.
Chicken strip.
Yeah.
And mac and cheese.
Shove like mac and cheese. One of them has like coleslaw, and there's like 5 different varieties now.
I love combining stuff. I really do. I love combining. I believe they're called Frankenfoods.
Oh, when you
ever heard of that theme? It's the Frankenfood, where I
haven't heard that term. But it sounds
butter,
cool.
like peanut butter and jelly, for years never went together. Somebody made that Frankenstein. You know what I mean? So it's like I think honey mustard is kind of another one where it's just like, should we put them together? It's like, let's try it. By the way, tip of the cap to that guy. But you mentioned you were all about what's like the best new thing out there right now? You try all of it. For a guy who is quote unquote a picky eater, you are very open to new fast foods. What's the cool new thing out there?
If you heard our conversation earlier this week, probably not Arby's. Just.
Well, I mean, we learned a lot about Arby's from our friend Devon Pouncey.
That was just
a particular part of Arby's and particular customer base or non-customer base that I didn't even know about. But by the way, when is Arby's going to bring back Big Montana? Like, they keep saying they have the meats, right? Oh, we have the meats. Nothing had the meats more than the Big Montana. That was my jam. When I was fat and I used to eat anything and everything in terms of fast food, Whoppers, grilled stuffed burritos, double quarter pounders with cheese, and the Big Montana from Arby's. That with a curly fry, and I would throw the you go Arby's sauce or horsey sauce or combo.
Depends on the mood.
Mm-hmm.
I lean Arby's sauce, but
Was it
I like
beef and
both.
cheddar? Is that still like they have the OG roast beef.
Yeah,
but
beef
they
and
have
cheddar's popular. I really like just regular roast beef. Their curly fries are great. Justin, not to make yourself feel old, But it has unfortunately not been on the Arby's menu since like '05.
Bring it back.
I know.
What
I
are you
know.
doing,
Bummer,
Arby's?
Right? I'd try it. I'm like, I'd try it.
Have you ever had a Big Montana?
No, I think they had been well discontinued before I was even. Like,
There's probably some math thing where like it didn't make the amount of roast beef they used to put on that Big Montana. Probably they couldn't sell it for enough if I'm guessing, because there's no reason for the Big Montana to not be in our lives anymore. But that just shows you how long it's been since I've been to an Arby's. Dude, Arby's was the spot when I was a kid. Like we had Arby's, Racks. Did you ever have a Racks?
never had a Rax. Never had a Rax.
I think that might have been an 80s thing that went away. Where was your okay, when I was a kid, we got good grades. We got to pick where we went to dinner. Did you guys ever have that?
Yes.
Where was your spot? Where'd you go? Because you didn't want to just go to like McDonald's, because we'd get like McDonald's like when we came home from like, basketball or something. Like
Yeah, like usually pizza of some sort, whether it was trying to think. Godfather's was in Sherwood at the time. If you went there with like your buddies after basketball or something, good grades specifically, we'd go to like Red Robin or something along those lines, maybe like some sit-down Mexican, something like that.
Mine was the Sizzler. Oh. The Sizzler.
Again, people that are slightly
I
older than
think the Sizzler can work today.
people who are slightly older than you and slightly older than me, actually marginally older than me, slightly older than you, just hail on Sizzler. So it must be something for your generation that mine just does not know about. Because you are not the only person to tell me what Sizzler once was.
I don't know your parents, but I would imagine, because they're Gen Xers like me. I'm the tail end of Gen X. Your parents right in the. I guarantee you, your parents have got some Sizzler stories.
Oh yeah,
and just the cheesy bread.
Yeah,
poorly cooked steak didn't matter, and then the all-you-can-eat shrimp, and just.
My dad made sure that we knew the theme, like steak, seafood, Sizzler. Like, I mean, he would say that when we would pass the Sizzler in, like, Salem on our way to Corvallis or something, man. He'd be like, I used to go to Sizzler all the time with Grandpa.
That was the
all
spot.
the time.
Birthday,
yeah.
good grades,
Yeah.
So, like,
but to answer,
you get to choose. We're going to Sizzler.
But to answer your question, Justin, we talked about a couple months ago. I tried the honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A.
There you go.
That pimento cheese on there slaps. I'd say that's probably.
I'm surprised that you would like a pimento cheese.
Really?
As picky of an eater as you are.
Yeah, I like all kinds of cheese, man.
But it's the pimento, though.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. I'll roll with it.
Fantastic stuff. All right, we've got hour number 3. Mike Yam's going to join the show. We got the RCM mailbag. Blazers with the win. Jim Harbaugh is going to the Chargers. A lot of stuff in hour number 3 next. 620 Rip City Radio.
what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, it is 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Justin Myers with you. Blazers get the win last night in dramatic fashion. 137-131 overtime victory over the Houston Rockets. Jeremy Grant with a game-tying three-pointer at the end of regulation. The bank was open. Anthony Simons also led the team with 33 points. 17 boards, by the way, from DeAndre Ayton. Need that from you every single night, big boy. Los Angeles Chargers have lured Jim Harbaugh back to the NFL. 5-year deal to take over the Chargers. He will be the next head coach for Justin Herbert. 6 head coaches in his young career. And also reports, according to Brady Henderson of ESPN.com and a friend of the program, Dan Quinn is in Seattle to interview with the Seattle Seahawks today. Mike Yam of the NFL Network joins us in 20 minutes. RCM mailbag, but a Blazer win. Harbaugh's off to the NFL. Coaching carousel continues. Hour 3 of RCM starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
A ton of stuff going on in all aspects of the sports world. Boy, all right, so let's take some inventory, shall we? First off, let's start locally. Let's start with the Blazers. After let's say, an emotional loss against Oklahoma City, and not an emotional in a tears kind of way, an emotional in a very angry, mad, and I get it, frustration. After a frustrating loss on the road in a game that game they should have won. Back-to-back games, Blazers bounce back, had a nice win last night. Ant's playing his tail off. He's the best player on this team. You know, I know we all want to avoid the question. I know we all want to avoid the question. Brendan, Anthony Simons keeps playing this way. What's his future? What's his future with this team? What's his role with this team? And I'm going to continue. And this is a potentially good problem to have. But are the Portland Trailblazers for the foreseeable future a team in which Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simons can both coexist in the backcourt? Now, I don't know enough about basketball to tell you definitively yes or no. I do know that they tried this with Dame and CJ. Now, our Ant and Scoot, they're different guys, different human beings. Can't always compare them, and it's almost unfair to compare them. But Anthony Simons is the point guard of this team right now, right? You need a bucket, he gets the ball. Now, I know that Brogdon and him both in the backcourt, they kind of, and I know we're all also in positionless basketball kind of at this particular time, but Anthony Simons is really good at basketball. Scoot's sitting there waiting in the wings. Shaedon Sharpe, by the way, I know injured, but he's going to come back. Can the Blazers coexist? Can the Blazers build a team, a championship-level team, with those three guys essentially running a three-guard lineup? Because I know, like Fentress has gotten on me, and I see it on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Where are you? Are we still calling it Twitter? You refuse to conform to the X?
Yeah, I've started calling it X pretty often now.
Yeah, they broke us down, didn't they? I remember. Do you remember when they changed Rose Garden to Moda Center? You remember? And I was adamant. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm never gonna call it the Moda Center. It's the Rose Garden. It's been the Rose Garden my entire
corporate
life.
Corporate sellout, Justin.
But corporate.
We were one of the only.
Call it Moda all the time now.
We were one of the only arenas, I think, in maybe major sports that did not have a sponsor. It was as unique to Oregon folks as pumping your own gas and not having sales tax.
Because what's the only? It's Madison Square Garden's the only one right now, right?
Yes,
the only one.
Yeah, and that's because it's MSG.
Well, yeah, because there's a corporate entity that owns it, but they don't have. That's Madison Square Garden.
But yeah, I think everybody else in I'm talking okay, maybe not hockey. I wouldn't know hockey, but
Well, let me ask you this: is Climate Pledge Arena Climate Pledge is not that's Amazon. We know that Bezos owns it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Is Climate Pledge Arena a corporate name? I don't think it is.
Probably
Technicality, I think it gets away.
It's not, but that's probably how Bezos was able to not pay taxes on it and yada yada.
I don't know.
All those things.
They love taxes up in Seattle. I live
They
there
sure
too.
do.
Well, not the income ones though.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Dude,
true.
that was my entire life. Lived and worked in the great state of Oregon. I moved and I don't. All I know is Texas and Florida didn't have income tax, right? That's all I know. I moved to Seattle. I get my first paycheck, and I'm like, I am rich. What is this? They're like, yeah, this is what happens when your whole paycheck comes to your bank account. I'm like,
Not having state taxes is quite nice.
this isn't. And then you go to, then there's sales tax everywhere, and you realize, oh, okay, got it.
So,
There's
you're
a
saying
balance to the thing.
So you're saying the people who live in Vancouver and do all their shopping here at Jansen Beach,
They are living the high on the hall.
they figured it out. They figured it out.
High on the hall.
And there's a reason that Jansen Beach Costco, busiest Costco in the state.
Is it?
I believe so.
Well, I tell you, the Clackamas one seems to be really darn busy.
Go to Jansen Beach, Justin. You'll be
It's
like,
a long
no.
drive. It's a bit
Yes,
of a
that's
drive.
a bit of a haul for you. But neither here nor
Are
there.
you old enough to remember when Jansen Beach used to be the spot?
Kind
Like
of.
Jansen
Yeah,
Beach
a
was.
little bit, vaguely. But yes, I mean, I think it has lost a lot of its luster in
It
recent
really
years.
has. But like, dude, that Old Navy went into the Jansen Beach. Old Navy was, and again, you're too young to remember when Old Navy was like hopping. But
Justin, but every year,
Jansen Beach was the spot.
from like 19...
Waddles became Hooters, and it's like, whoa! Now I don't know what it is now.
From like 1996 to like 2006. Oh, Justin, if my mom could not go to Old Navy and get all of us our matching 4th of July shirts, like,
Dude.
Old Navy was the go-to for us.
Such a jam.
I think that's Justin mentioned overalls like a week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I rocked overalls as like a 0 to 10 aged youth, they were bought at Old Navy. Like, Justin, I would say probably 60% of my youth clothes were probably Old Navy. So it slapped.
Dude, I loved Old Navy. That was my
It slapped.
Never made enough money to go to Abercrombie like full time. Like Abercrombie was like, all right, I could buy like one pair of jeans, maybe a distressed Bill hat. I'm more.
Distressed Bill. Distressed jeans. God, I love that term.
Do you remember
Oh, yes.
the distressed like
Yeah, oh,
your
yes.
hat that you are wearing right now? Take a razor blade and rip up the bill. Like we paid
And it
extra.
would be distressed.
We paid extra for that. Anyways. What were we
Good
talking about?
times, man.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the Blazers.
And Jansen Beach a little bit.
I don't know how we
But
got
really the Blazers.
I don't know how we got on Jansen Beach, but it used to be the spot, man. But like Anthony Simons is clearly their best player. Scoot is the future, and Shaden is the talent, right? Is that the plan? And then pairing those three guys up with, I would imagine, because Jeremy Grant ain't going anywhere. You know what I mean? Jeremy Grant's not going anywhere. He's 5-year deal. Now, maybe potentially down the road he gets traded. I don't know. But he ain't going anywhere. I don't think DeAndre Ayton's going anywhere. So is that the plan, along with other, kind of, I don't want to call them minor moves, but like, we were screaming for years, like, quit making like moves on the outskirts, rip the Band-Aid off. They did that. So is this it? Right? When you think about, and again, is this the right way to do it? Because Anthony Simons, especially these last 3 or 4 games, he looks so good.
So it's possible.
He looks so good. He is, and I've been screaming, like, we need an alpha. Anthony Simons playing like an alpha.
It is 100.
It's his team right now.
Right. And I don't, yeah, and
I don't know if he's giving it up.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Now I'll say this. It is possible to keep those 3 guards and someone won't start, or maybe you do. Maybe you go back to the old Norman Powell at 3 game. Maybe Shaden Sharp's better at the 3 than Norman Powell. Hard to say. But I'll say this, Justin, like going back to what we said before, it's still too heavy right now. If you get Malcolm Brogdon maybe out of here come the trade deadline, then I'm curious to see what it looks like with those 3. Because then there will be no one else competing for guards minutes.
Yeah, so if they trade Malcolm Brogdon in a month, maybe less than a month.
Yeah, it's
right?
like 2 weeks.
They trade Malcolm
February
Brogdon.
8th,
If they trade Malcolm Brogdon in 2 weeks, which, I mean, you have to. Like, you can't keep with all these guards. And in those 2 weeks, Shaden comes back. Do you run, like, the month of March? Because the month of March, do you run Ant, Scoot, Shaden, D.A., Jeremy Grant lineup?
I would.
Like, let's run it out and see what you got. Get Matisse coming off the bench.
Give me some of those analytics. I want to know the plus minus of them all playing together and defensive rating, Justin, and all that. LeBron rating.
You don't really have a backup point guard, though. Do you need a backup point guard? Because remember, for years and years and years, right, the Blazers didn't have a backup point guard. And CJ and Dame played together, and then they tried them playing apart more in the rotation. Like, they couldn't quite figure it out. So, in that lineup, like with Ant, Scoot, Shaden, D.A., Jeremy Grant, Matisse Thybulle coming off the bench. Jabari Walker's playing pretty good basketball. Does he come off the, like... He's going to be coming off the bench.
It's also
gives you some nice matchups a little bit.
It's also possible, Justin, that if you trade Malcolm Brogdon, I mean, you're not going to bring back nothing. You will probably bring back somebody's salary they don't want, right?
So then it's another
body, but maybe
another body that's you create a knee injury
great.
and then
So it's they need Shaden back. Let's start there. They need Shaden back. Let's try this little 3-guard lineup out.
I mean, I do think Shaden is. I mean, for a 3, he is technically undersized. Plays bigger than he is, though.
But he is taller than, and plays bigger than Norman Powell. And I really hate to throw shade at Norman Powell, but he was just the guy. They said, Justin, this is the 3 we've been waiting for.
We all looked at it and was like, that ain't going to work. Like, we all saw it. It's like, wait a minute. Shorter guy. For NBA, like, they're all taller than me.
Me too.
But like,
I can play better than I can.
Shorter guy. Like, isn't it nuts with all the stats and analytics we have in this world, right? And again, I don't want to overuse the term analytics. I think people just use analytics when, like, they don't like a decision a coach makes. I heard somebody say, like, analytics is like sports version of woke. It's like, oh, you did something I don't like. You're woke. And it's like, no, you don't like it. It's like, it's analytics. It's like, no, not really analytics. It's decision making based upon some statistics. But with all the analytics that we have, with like the plus minus, usage rates, Raptor scores, and I just love the Raptor. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but it keeps getting brought up. Like
the metric called LeBron.
Habistro just sits there and is just like, well, look at all, and I'm like, Tom, that's too much math for me. With all that, it comes down to like how tall is this dude? You know, how long is the arms? How tall is the dude? Basket's still 10 feet, right? That's not changing anytime soon. But it's nice to see the team play with health, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens when Brogdon, if in fact Brogdon ultimately gets moved. Is that like a for sure deal? Brogdon getting moved? Is that a for sure deal?
We had Fentress on earlier this week. He kind of hinted as much. If they don't, it's a missed opportunity, in my opinion. So it's not the end of the world, but I just think it'd be a missed opportunity because there are contenders who would love to have him. Maybe even the Milwaukee Bucks, who need to shore up their guard.
They got
defense.
a tall guy that can shoot threes and come over here?
I'll take Bobby Portis. Throw him this way.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, probably not.
I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. All right. Coming up next, though, we are going to talk some football. We got divisional games coming up on Sunday. Jim Harbaugh is the coach of the Chargers. Is anybody going to kick the tires on Bill Belichick? What's going on with Atlanta? What's going on with Carolina? Lots to talk about with Mike Yam from the NFL Network joining us next, 620 Rip City Radio. It was always the Willie or won't he? Willie or won't he? Is Jim Harbaugh going to go to the NFL? Is Jim Harbaugh going to leave Michigan and go to the NFL? And it finally happened yesterday as the Los Angeles Chargers, with quarterback Justin Herbert, made the move. Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL, starting off a whole lot of discussion about the coaching carousel. Plus, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. There's still 2 conference title games and a Super Bowl matchup to be decided. Joining us to talk about all things NFL from the NFL Network, host of NFL Total Access, Mike Yam, back on the big show. Good morning, Mike. How we doing?
Good morning. I appreciate it, and you're right. It is a crazy time. You painted a nice little picture there.
All right, so let's talk about Jim Harbaugh real quick, Mike, because I know that you, like me, spent a good chunk of your time covering the Pac-12, and Harbaugh has a bit of history out here on the West Coast with his time with the Stanford Cardinal, and then going on with the 49ers. And boy, we talk about kind of taking inventory on the show, and when you look at 11-year NFL career as a quarterback, college success, NFL success, college success again, loves Judge Judy and P.F. Chang's, doesn't eat chicken because it's a nervous bird, Captain Khakis, like, we talk about one-of-one unicorns a lot. Jim Harbaugh is like that one-of-one, and now coming back to the NFL in a career move that we very rarely see, right? With the college to the NFL, back to college, and then back to the NFL.
For sure. I mean, look, the ping-ponging and the fact that he's been able to win everywhere tells you why this is really a great move from a Chargers perspective. Injecting life into a franchise that, quite frankly, needs a lot of life. I think the expectations were significantly higher than what the results were this past year. I would point to some injuries, but Brandon Staley, man, there was so much smoke, for a couple seasons now about his seat and how hot it was, and it seemed like it was inevitable once that team got eliminated from postseason play that he wasn't the long-term answer for this franchise. But I think from a Harbaugh perspective, I mean, you look at a guy who literally has won at every level. You made reference to the time in the Pac-12. I mean, the job that he did at Stanford, at the time was unthinkable to have a program like that become a national power. And David Shaw obviously was able to keep that going for a really long period of time as well. I think what's going to be fascinating is this guy's accomplished basically everything you can at the college level, right? He's turned around programs. He's won now a national championship, and now he gets an opportunity to go back to the NFL and try to win a Super Bowl, which he was knocking on the door of. The Niners were a franchise when he was there, never had a losing season, and I think right now the bones of the Chargers is really good. I mean, you got a franchise quarterback of all the teams that had an opening in this cycle. I would point to the Chargers as the most attractive job of all of them because of Justin Herbert, because of the fact that this roster is not void of talent. There's a lot of guys that are there. And then candidly, being down now at NFL Network, which is in the LA area, this is a Rams sort of vibe in town. Like, they kind of own the city from an NFL perspective, and the Chargers, they needed to infuse some life, and I think Harbaugh does exactly that.
It's also interesting you mentioned David Shaw, because his name kind of popped up with this Chargers job, kind of out of nowhere, and it felt like David Shaw did his time at Stanford, and then decided to kind of take all of his money and just not recruit for a while, which I could completely understand. And now I'm wondering though, Mike, is there maybe a sense that Jim Harbaugh maybe wants to get the old band back together? Because David Shaw certainly showed a bit of an interest in coaching again. Don't know if he'd want to come back and be a coordinator, but if there ever was a spot, and I know Kellen Moore is kind of sitting there as well. He's a Pacific Northwest guy. We love him. But, Kellen Moore kind of sitting there, but there's going to be a lot of changes. It's interesting if maybe potentially they get the band back together with David Shaw there.
Really good thought. I think David, who's done some stuff with us at NFL Network the last 2 seasons, so I've gotten to talk to Coach a little bit more about this, and I do know he's itching to get back into coaching, but I think it's more as a head coach.
Yeah.
I think last year's cycle, before the Denver Broncos settled on Sean Payton, I know he had interviewed for that job. It was well reported on the Chargers. I think there's another interview for David that he did go through. Off the top of my head, I don't exactly remember which spot it was, but it's sort of fascinating. You mentioned Kellen Moore. I just saw that it's the Browns and the Eagles now that have requested to be able to talk to him about their vacancies at the offensive coordinator position. What's fascinating, when the story broke yesterday, we were doing Total Access, and I think it was Mike Garafolo or Ian Rappaport, our guys. One of them had made reference to the fact that it wasn't a stumbling block, but there was speculation that this deal was going to happen, and it was going on for a couple days. So I think people were like, well, why is this thing official? And I think some of the and I don't want to overstate this, but I think there was concern, which maybe wasn't that big of a deal, on the pool of cash that he could pay some of those coordinators. I think Harbaugh's got a pretty good sense of the coaches that he wants to bring. I don't know if Shaw's on that list, but to your point, I think it does open up things for Kellen Moore and some options for him, which I don't necessarily think we net out with him with the Chargers, but it's going to be fascinating to see where Harbaugh leads in terms of some of those coaches on his staff. Like Vic Fangio, right? Like he's now available. Like does Vic, is he now going to be their defensive coordinator? I think Philadelphia is probably pretty interested in him. But the point is, like, there's a lot of hot coordinator names that are out there right now.
Mike Yam from the NFL Network joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One more thing on Harbaugh, and then I got some other thoughts on with the Seahawks coming up. But Harbaugh is one of those rare guys like Jimmy Johnson, like Pete Carroll, that was able to have kind of the success at the highest level in both college and pros. But we have seen it didn't work out for Nick Saban. It didn't work out for Urban Meyer. It didn't work out for Chip Kelly. Guys that have plenty of credentials at the college level. It didn't. What is it about like Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll for that matter, because they're kind of the two guys to really do it most recently, that has them having success at both levels that maybe guys like Urban Meyer and Nick Saban just couldn't get done?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I wish I had a really solid answer for you, because the reality is, sometimes it's fit, it's personality. I think, for guys like Saban, for example, like I think it just suited him to be a college coach. I think the rules of engagement maybe is part of the reason why, we're not going to be talking about him on the sidelines at Alabama, but, generally pre-NIL, pre-portal, like that was a situation that Nick was uniquely qualified to absolutely dominate. Now, would that mean if Nick got an opportunity to coach in the NFL in a different spot with some of those experiences that he wouldn't be a better head coach? Like I would argue, like, yeah, Nick would probably be pretty terrific on the sidelines of Sunday football. But I think for Harbaugh specifically, I've talked to a couple guys that have been around him over the years. There is this innate ability in terms of team building at that level. Now, obviously he did it at the college level, but for whatever reason, there was a certain level of respect that he was able to garner. The personality, I think, is really specific that he brings. Now, I know you sort of chronicled it a little bit when you were on your introduction, when you were talking about some of the nuance around Harbaugh. But, at the end of the day, I also think he does a pretty tremendous job of building the staff around him. Like, if you look at all the stops and the coaches that he's worked with, it's a pretty terrific group. Like, that coaching tree is really impressive, and I think that's also part of the reason why he's had success at every level. Like Nick Sirianni, for example, right? Like we saw that team undergo massive change. Offensive and defensive coordinators from a year ago, not there this season. There's collapse. Now they're looking to fill those two spots. Like I think sometimes we underestimate the importance of those coordinators and how pivotal they are to a team's success. And I think Jim's done a really good job of having those guys around him.
Mike Yam from the NFL Network joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Let's talk about the Seahawks, Mike. Let's kind of go back in time, because I guess I was somewhat taken aback when the Pete Carroll news dropped, but then probably like most people around here is like, okay, amicable breakup. He's 72, moving to the front office. This feels like, a mutual parting of the ways. And then an hour later, Pete Carroll took the podium and was like, yeah, no, I still wanted to be the head coach. And they told me no. And we learned more and more that no, he was fired, and they are moving on. And so, it's from that standpoint, were you surprised? Because I know the way that they tried to word it, and look, we're here in Portland. Blazer fans very familiar with the same front office people that the Seahawks fans are. I was surprised at the way it was worded, and then the way that Pete Carroll came about it. Were you surprised that Pete Carroll was ultimately fired there by the Seahawks?
Yeah, no question. I was actually working that day. We were doing Total Access on NFL Network.
What a day to be working, by the way.
It crazy, right? And even yesterday with the Harbaugh news. But Michael Robinson, who obviously played for Pete in Seattle, won a Super Bowl with him. I kind of turned his way when the news broke, and I was like surprised. I was like, I didn't see this one coming, and neither did he. I think the reality is there was so much respect inside that locker room. There were so many wins. This was a franchise that had so much success with him at the helm, and to see it turn the way that it did quickly, I think caught some people off guard. I think it caught some of the players in that locker room off guard. I think the fact that you saw some of the leaders of the team, some of those players at that press conference for Pete Carroll, I think tells you and screams the amount of respect that he garners with that team. But, at the end of the day, Schneider hasn't been able to pull the trigger on a head coach before. This will be the first time he gets to go and do that. There's no question the personnel on this team is really strong. I mean, they've done a nice job over the years drafting players. There's a good core of guys there, and I can't help but think the evolution of NFL offenses to more of the air attack, and I think Pete was more of the ground and pound, and there's nothing wrong with that because I think there's some teams in the postseason that can figure out ways to win with that style of play. But I do think I'd be fascinated to see where they net out with the head coach, if it's going to be an offensive or defensive guy, but more specifically, if it's a defensive head coach, if it's Dan Quinn, for example, hey, who's that offensive coordinator going to be? What's that philosophy? Because I got to imagine you're going to see this team go to the air a little bit more than we've seen in recent years.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you brought up the potential of Dan Quinn being the next head coach of the Seahawks and who could the offensive coordinator be, because I don't know if you have heard these rumblings. They're getting pretty loud here on the West Coast, and a guy that we are very familiar with, the head coach at UCLA. Now, I don't know how much traction this is going to get, and it might just be a fun story for a day while we're sitting here, but the rumors kind of swirling around that maybe potentially there's a package deal with Dan Quinn as defensive coordinator, then Chip Kelly getting back to the NFL world, which, I mean, Mike, we're all familiar with what's going on in college football, and I don't know how much you worked with Chip. I was there in Eugene. I covered every single game he coaches, and I can tell you that guy probably not all that interested in NIL stuff and transfer portal stuff. So it's interesting that his name's kind of getting floated around as getting back to the NFL as an offensive coordinator, and specifically with the Seahawks.
So, one, I love the scuttlebutt, right? I was like, talk radio, let's go.
Let's do it.
I hadn't heard that one. Now, obviously, being in the LA area, Chip's name, depending on which UCLA person you talk to, it's either hit or miss in terms of how much they love Chip. I think the world of Chip. I got to know him obviously a little bit when he was at Oregon, but more specifically when he was with the Bruins and has been the last few years. So I'm a big fan. I'm with you there, though. I think that and it's not a Chip Kelly comment. I think it's more of a coach's comment in college football. I got to be honest with you. I don't know how many guys want to deal with the headaches that is now coming with college football from a head coaching perspective. The player movement alone is mind-boggling to me, and keeping track of it has got to be ridiculously difficult. I remember having this conversation with Jonathan Smith a few years ago. He'd even told me, he's like, man, you got to spend a lot of time recruiting your own players. Mm-hmm. And I think some might say, well, isn't that standard? Yes and no. I mean, of course, you want to have great relationships with the guys on your team, but it does, that recruiting process is a little bit different than once they're landed and signed and on your roster. And the fact that you have to go and double down on that, then balance the portal and who are the guys that could potentially help your team on top of the regular recruiting trail, which is already taxing on these coaches and what they're trying to do. Because recruiting, at the end of the day, lifeblood of every single program. And then, oh, by the way, throw on top of it the dollars that are going to be thrown these guys' way in NIL. I mean, there is like straight up leverage plays here for guys. Hey, I'm going to jump in the portal because I want to see what I'm worth and what I can get at another program. I just think it's really difficult. Chip has been very vocal about that. Even in this offseason, I've seen a ton of comments from him about that, just kind of the way college football is and some corrections that need to be made. But at the end of the day, I hadn't heard that one. I do think it's fun. I would be surprised, though. Maybe Chip does see it as a path to get back to a head coaching job in the NFL, taking that OC job. But there's a part of me that says, I don't know if he goes from head coach to OC in the league. I'm not 100% sure that would happen.
That's the best part about doing daily radio, Mike, is he's only going to be right for today, right? We'll fix it tomorrow if something changes, and then we'll go back like, oh, boy, that was an interesting rumor. There is games that are going to be played, by the way. Obviously, the coaching carousel and everything with Harbaugh and with the Seahawks brings a lot of attention, but there are a couple of games set for Sunday. So let's start in the AFC. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, turns out. Patrick Mahomes still really, really good. But, man, what a run for Lamar Jackson, Mike. From where he was in the summer with contract negotiations and the franchise tag and everything else, and like teams that maybe and it looked like he wasn't going to be on the Ravens, to now kind of on the doorstep of another MVP. What a 9-month run for Lamar Jackson back in the AFC title game.
Spectacular. Absolutely tremendous, because you're right. This was a story that dominated the offseason last year. Was this guy going to get paid? And I just couldn't fathom the dollars that were being thrown out there for other quarterbacks. And I look at a guy who's already won an MVP, who's 26 years old, and clearly is the biggest catalyst for that team to win games. The record without him is crazy. So I look at just sort of a no-brainer decision that franchise made. They got to be smiling ear to ear right now because they are the best team in the NFL. They're the most balanced team. They've smashed some of the best teams in the league, including the San Francisco 49ers, including the Detroit Lions, playing in that NFC championship game. So if they're not the favorite, and, depending, and I've had a couple people say this to me, the Niners, I guess, according to Vegas, are the favorites to win the Super Bowl. That's crazy to me. Now, I do think that this is a tough game against Kansas City just based off of what we're now seeing from this Chiefs offense that seemingly is finding its way. But look, they beat up a bruised and battered Bills team that defensively, went in with 4 linebackers. Like that's not supposed to happen. And I think that's the reason why a lot of us at NFL Network had picked Kansas City to win that game on Friday before the game over the weekend. So, but Lamar's been nothing short of phenomenal this season. In my mind, he is the league's MVP. I don't think it's that much of a conversation. The race is not close to me. And for as much as we talk about Lamar and what that offense has been, schematically, Todd Monken, the job that he's done is nothing short of terrific. But that team's defense does not get enough credit. I think it's sort of this little side note. Hey, it's Lamar and, oh, yeah, the top-ranked defense in the NFL. No. Like, they are historically great when you look at some of these numbers. So I think Kansas City's going to have their hands full.
All right, real quick, with the NFC title game, Mike, I'm obsessed with Dan Campbell. I love the fact that there is a place in this league for a Dan Campbell, right? Because there's a lot of guys that kind of all look and sound the same as head coaches in the NFL, and here we are, a guy that is, a kind of a meathead, dip-spitting, Metallica listening to, kind of wacky head coach who had maybe the craziest introductory press conference we've ever seen, talking about biting kneecaps, and the fact that he has got his team completely bought in and playing in the NFC title game. And I would imagine as a guy that covers the league, gotta love that there's a guy like that and that could have success in this league.
Oh, he's one of my favorites. There's no doubt. He's one of those guys, back in the day, and this probably happened to you, you get those early jobs, whether it's radio or TV, and, you got to watch these press conferences. And more times than not, the press conferences kind of suck. And you're logging tape, and, but he's like one of those dudes that's like, hey, I want more press conference. Like, I just want to see this guy talk. The locker room speeches, it's awesome. I'm with you. This job and this turnaround and the vision that he had for this franchise and the fact that he's been able to execute and really have this team one win away from the Super Bowl was sort of unthinkable, I think, at that press conference that you referenced. But this team is ready to win, and the health of Deebo Samuel is going to dictate, at least in my mind, how this game goes. This team was fortunate to get a win. They typically don't win without him out on that football field, and the Lions right now, physically, I think, are one of the top 3 most physical teams in the league. Now, I think there's some issues in terms of that secondary, and it's exploitable from a Brock Purdy perspective, but the chess match between Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, and what we're going to see from that team's defense and what Kyle Shanahan's going to cook up against the Lions defense is must-see television.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, I covered all those Chip Kelly press conferences in Eugene where every game was the Super Bowl. Let's see, every player opponent was a faceless opponent. We don't do anything. We just win the day, and every injured player was day to day. Yeah, I definitely dealt with a lot. I want to let the people know, by the way, because you're not only a terrific NFL analyst, you are an author of a children's book, Fried Rice and Marinara. People can find that on Amazon. They can also find the link on your Twitter page or X page, whatever you want to call it, at Mike_Yam. So I wanted to make sure people understand about the book out there. And, hey, Mike, thanks so much for your time. Always loved talking sports with you. Appreciate you hopping on the show. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Anytime, man, and I appreciate the invite. As always, looking forward to the next one.
There we go. Mike Yam of the NFL Network. We wrap up the big show with the RCM mailbag next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's wrap up the big show. It is time for the RCM mailbag random questions, any subject, any topic. Nothing is off limits, and I repeat, will not duck the tough questions. Big voice is going to tell you the same thing. Let's open it up. Hey, how about a mailbag?
Yeah, let's get to the mailbag.
I can sit
itself.
here and talk about, like, the way music
Music
industry
used to
is
be.
weird, but yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining for sure. But Justin, let's go ahead and let's do a Super Bowl of food here. So, give me your Super Bowl, the top 2 chips that Justin's chips.
All right, so
you get
again,
2, one has to win though.
parameters. Are we talking out of the bag, grab, eat, or are we talking with accompaniment? Because that makes a very, very big difference.
Out of the bag, eat.
Okay.
Straight up chip.
Because, like, tortilla chips with salsa or guac
Sure.
is...
But yeah, no,
That's
we're talking
top tier, but, like, tortilla chips without salsa...
not great.
they're-
Unless you're at a Mexican restaurant, they're hot and fresh.
But you need the salsa, though.
True. But no, for this case,
All right,
I'm,
so
I'm
out of the
thinking
bag-
like, you know, Lay's, Doritos.
Yeah,
I'll take Cheetos. You can throw
Cheetos
in-
aren't chips, though. It's a whole thing. Had an entire office arguing that for, like, a week. Drove Chad doing crazy. It
Wait,
made
so
my-
he thinks that Cheetos are not
No, it's just the fact that people kept arguing
Oh,
over
gotcha.
and over again
Gotcha.
drove him nuts. And he, like, walked into the office, saw that everybody was arguing, looked at me and goes, "You did this, didn't you?" And I go, "Yes, I did." I sure did. All right. Sour cream and cheddar Ruffles. That's right there. Sour cream and cheddar Ruffles right out of the bag. As good as it gets. Second contender in said Super Bowl, original nacho cheese Doritos. Nacho cheese. Sorry, Cool Ranch. Nacho cheese is better.
Two great choices. I'm going cheddar and sour cream. I'll crown. That's from this half of the Super Bowl bet. I'll go
I
cheddar.
think so. I think that's where I want to go.
The ridges. I mean, I just love cheddar and sour cream as a flavor. Like, I prefer Ruffles because they got the ridges, but like the Lay's cheddar and sour cream are solid too.
But yeah, Ruffles
With the ridges, man.
sour cream and cheddar, not sour cream and onion,
Sour
which is
cream
also
cheddar.
very good.
And cheddar.
Sour cream and cheddar is so good. The sour cream and jalapeno, I think, of
think I've
the
tried
like the
those.
kettle chips, also very good. But of the ones you can buy everywhere, Those are the two. Those are the two that I would put in the Super Bowl. I am salivating right now.
I bet. All right, Justin, let's get
I love chips so much.
Yeah, chips are solid, man.
Can't eat them, though.
Well,
because I have no control.
Well, maybe on Super Bowl you could,
potentially
have a cheat day. So, we look for the cheat days for you, Justin.
That Costco Himalayan sea salt.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
There's a lot of great snacks at Costco.
Good.
Man. And it's all supersized, so you feel it's like, oh, I just, you go through, it's like, no, I don't just want.
You take those with the Parmesan jalapeno dip that comes in like a quart.
At Costco?
Yeah.
Really? I don't think I've ever had the Parmesan jalapeno dip at Costco.
Get it.
Okay, I'm going to check that out next time I'm there.
And get it.
Yeah, okay. Because I like that. I like some cheese.
So good. So good. All right, do we have time or do we got to close up shop? Time to close up shop. I can't be talking about chips, Brendan. It's just I'm going to run off forever. But that's going to do it for the big show. Thanks to Mike Yam from the NFL Network. Thanks to super producer Brendan. Thanks to all of you. We've got Travis Demers on the big show tomorrow. It's a Fancy Coffee Friday tomorrow. A lot of stuff to dive into. We'll talk to you then bright and early here on 620 Rip City Radio.